Chapter 1044. Save. Gu Mengmeng caught onto the keyword and her gaze was filled with astonishment. Sandy nodded and pointed at the bushes in the distance with her trembling hand. Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and looked in that direction. After a closer look, she realized that there were many corpses lying all over the place. Cole would save Sandy? Didn't this pervert only know how to harm others? Cole chuckled and said, "Accident?" Gu Mengmeng ignored Cole because no matter what he did, in Gu Mengmeng's eyes, he was just a weasel paying respects to a chicken and did not have any good intentions. Cole took a deep breath and then seriously felt the pain from his internal organs caused by his broken bones. The smile on his lips deepened and melded into one with the night sky. He said with a slight grievance, "Ah, Gu, you really don't understand me. I want to be the most special person in your life. How can I allow anyone other than me to threaten you? If you hate someone else, I will be jealous." Pervert. Gu Mengmeng threw this sentence at him and turned around to ignore Cole. Elvis did not like the way Cole was looking at Gu Mengmeng. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had no intention to continue talking to Cole, he moved to stand between the two of them. He did not release his beast pressure, but his gaze was filled with a murderous aura. Cole did not respond to Elvis and just turned around lazily. He said, "So slow. Ah, Gu will be impatient if we wait any longer." Gu Mengmeng comforted Sandy while paying attention to the surroundings. There were messy footsteps approaching from afar. For some reason, those footsteps seemed to be stepping on the tip of Gu Mengmeng's heart. Every step was so heavy that Gu Mengmeng could not help but frown. "Ha, you're finally here." Cole stood calmly and the smile on his face deepened, with a hint of bloodlust and wickedness. Just as he finished his sentence, a group of males had already surrounded them. The one leading them was Oakley and beside him stood over 20 males emitting a murderous aura. Gu Mengmeng glanced at them briefly. She had seen 16 of them before. On the day she had just returned to Sauter, these 16 people had welcomed her at the entrance of Sauter. Without saying a word, the 20 over people pounced on Cole in unison. Among them, there were 2 5th-level orcs, 7 or 8 4th-level orcs, and the rest were 3rd-level orcs. Cole instantly unleashed his might and the 3rd-level orc collapsed onto the ground. The level 4 orcs gritted their teeth and persevered, but their combat power was reduced to almost negligible. Hence, it became a triangular battle between the 2 5th-level orcs and Cole. If Cole had not been sent flying by Gu Mengmeng's kick, it would have been difficult for him to win with his 5th-level strength. But it was almost impossible for these 2 5th-level orcs who were not at their peak to kill him. But now, Cole's ribs were injured and even breathing would injure his internal organs, not to mention the intense battle. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Cole knelt down on one knee. A 5th-level lion beast swept its leg and kicked Cole's left chest. That was where Gu Mengmeng had injured him. The broken bone pierced into Cole's lungs and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Cole's consciousness started to dissipate but his gaze was fixed on Gu Mengmeng. His blood-stained lips curled up slightly and he said in a breathless voice, "If you don't save me, I will die." Cole's voice was very soft but he was sure that Gu Mengmeng could hear him. After all, she had the power of a beast king. "Aside from the topic, Cole, you said that my method of threatening Gu is old-fashioned?" "Ha, there is obviously a method that works every time. Why should I waste effort to think of a new one?" "Author, don't come out to show your existence, everyone can drown you with their spit. Hurry and scram and crawl away smoothly." Chapter 1045. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly as she struggled internally. She finally understood what Cole's motive was when he told her that his fate was linked to Qishuan's. Take a gamble? As long as she did not do anything, Cole would be dead meat. If the bargaining chip was Qishuan's life, Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip, but still dashed forward in a big stride. She grabbed the back of Cole's neck and pulled him back, narrowly avoiding the sharp claws of another 5th-level Black Panther orc that was about to dig his heart out. Elvis rushed to Gu Mengmeng's side half a second later and kicked the Black Panther's outstretched arm. The Black Panther's entire body tilted to one side, then his sharp claws dug into a tree branch at the side. With a loud crack, a huge chunk of the tree branch was torn off. The Black Panther's reaction was very agile as he immediately pounced back to fight Elvis. Meanwhile, after Gu Mengmeng pulled Cole back, she pressed his neck against the ground and resisted the urge to snap his neck. She glared at him harshly before letting go and returning to the battlefield. Although the Black Panther and the lion were not at their peak, one had outstanding agility while the other had outstanding strength. In a 1 versus 2 situation, Elvis was at a huge disadvantage. Gu Mengmeng had just stood up when Cole grabbed her wrist and pulled her inwards. Gu Mengmeng was caught off guard and her entire body fell into Cole's chest. He was already injured and after being smashed by Gu Mengmeng, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he immediately turned his head, some blood still splattered onto Gu Mengmeng's face. Cough, cough, cough. The blood flowed back into his veins and Cole coughed violently. Gu Mengmeng did not have the leisure to take care of him. She wanted to pry his hand away and stand up to help Elvis, but Cole held onto her hand and refused to let go as he coughed. You don't want your remaining hand either, do you? As Gu Mengmeng said, she raised her hand to break Cole's other hand. Cole frowned and shook his head as he coughed. Then, he saw many black figures leaping over from all directions. Elvis was shocked and instinctively took a step back to shield Gu Mengmeng. At the same time, the 3rd-level beasts on the ground, the 4th-level beasts that were barely holding on and the 2 5th-level beasts that were still trembling with Elvis just now all showed signs of defeat. The 3rd-level and 4th-level beasts were bitten to death, the 2 5th-level beasts were scattered by a group of 3rd-level and 4th-level beasts, and the Black Panther was completely surrounded. No matter how hard he bit and killed, he could not break through the encirclement. On the other hand, the lion was being attacked by 2 5th-level stray beasts. Black Panther wanted to release his beast pressure to get rid of the 3rd and 4th-level orcs surrounding him to help the lion, but before he could release his beast pressure, the lion's head had already been bitten off by 2 stray beasts, one on the head and the other on the spine. The 3rd-level and 4th-level orcs immediately dispersed, and the 2 5th-level stray beasts immediately counterattacked. No matter how agile the Black Panther was, it was of no use. It did not even have the time to let out a cry before its chest was cut open, and its organs spilled all over the ground. And all this happened in less than 10 seconds. Gu Mengmeng looked at Cole, who was clutching onto her wrist tightly. Her coughing gradually subsided, but her breathing was still not smooth. But her lips curled into a smile that said, "That's all," with a hint of scheming and sarcasm. Chapter 1046. Cole tilted his head and ignored Gu Mengmeng's tugging. He refused to let go and leaned into Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng felt disgusted and wanted to push him away. But he looked like he would definitely die if she used any more force, so Gu Mengmeng did not dare to make any big movements. Cole's expression became even more arrogant after he succeeded. Tilting his face, Cole smiled and pointed at Oakley with his trembling chin. Now, Gu, do you wish for him to live or to die? Gu Mengmeng frowned at Cole. He obviously came to kill you today. If I said I want him to live, would you let him off? Cole chuckled. Blood trickled down from the corner of his lips but he did not seem to care. If he deserves to die just because he wanted to kill me, then there would only be piles of bones left in this world. Cough, cough, cough. I don't blame him for wanting to kill me. But he made use of you, so I cannot let him off. Gu Mengmeng did not quite understand what Cole was talking about. There was no fear on Oakley's face but it was filled with guilt. He did not dare to look into Gu Mengmeng's eyes. Cole sneered. People who are disloyal to you do not deserve to stay by your side. Oakley's eyes were fixed on Cole but he did not dare to move an inch to meet Gu Mengmeng's gaze. He could only turn all his anger into a voice, "The winner takes all, if you want to kill me then kill me. But after you kill me, let Bloom go." Although Cole's chest was in excruciating pain and every word he said was excruciating, he was leaning on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder. He felt that this was the most wonderful feeling. Even the pain made him so happy. Even though every word he said would cause his internal organs to be rubbed by the broken bones, causing his entire body to spasm in pain, he did not stop talking as if he was torturing himself. He talked back and forth with Oakley. Do you think you still have the right to make requests? Gu Mengmeng was confused. She looked at Cole and then at Oakley. Who is Bloom? Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's words, Oakley lowered his gaze and stared at the ground, until he understood that Cole would not answer this question for him. Cole was looking at him as though he was watching a good show, forcing him to face Gu Mengmeng himself. Clenching his fists, clenching his teeth and abandoning all his pride and self-esteem, Oakley raised his head with tears streaming down his cheeks. Gu Mengmeng, everything is my fault. Bloom is innocent. Please save him, at least save him. So who is Bloom? Gu Mengmeng rarely saw males in the beast world cry. No matter how badly injured or painful they were, they would grit their teeth and endure it. The only time was when Peter and Natalie got back together. Peter had cried, but he had only secretly shed 2 drops of tears. He had not expected Oakley's eyes to be so red, with tears and snot flowing down his face in handfuls, looking extremely pathetic. Bloom is the little snake you left behind to communicate with. He's my lover. Gu Mengmeng was stunned and could not react for a long while. Because she clearly remembered, that little snake was a damn male. Gu Mengmeng did not discriminate against homosexuals. On the contrary, she had a cowardly fujoshi soul. The reason why she was cowardly was because she was extremely brave when shouting slogans and fantasizing. But when a BLCP really appeared beside her, she was not used to it. Chapter 1047. Oakley's hoarse voice pulled Gu Mengmeng back from her thoughts. The pleading and sorrowful look on his face touched Gu Mengmeng's heart. Was love differentiated by gender? In the past, when they were in the dormitory reading a tofu manga from H country, there was a sentence in it that was treated as a divine decree by the few fujoshis in the dormitory. Everyone is like a magnet. Different genders are like 2 different poles, easily attracted to each other. But for the 2 poles to embrace each other, it requires even more courage and strength. It's already so difficult for them, why should we add to their resistance? Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Cole, frowning. Oakley is my friend, no matter what he did in the past, I will protect him. As for Bloom, he belongs to the Snake King Valley, you have to return him to me. Cole chuckled, his laughter sounding strange and demonic. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng, asking in a gentle tone, you are still as soft-hearted as before. But who asked you to be my Gu? Since you have already asked, I will naturally have to satisfy you. He lifted his finger and one of the stray beasts raised its head and howled. Not long after, there was a rustling sound, and then, a small snake in the form of a half-beast slithered out. She was used to seeing Wabi-Eye's burly half-beast form. Compared to him, this little snake looked much more delicate. His upper body had smooth muscles, but they were not very strong, at most at a healthy level, probably like those few boys in the swimming club in school who could never get a spot in the competition. There were bruises all over his body, and there was a large cut at the corner of his mouth, still stained with blood. He looked dazed, clearly approaching her at a steady speed, but Gu Mengmeng could clearly feel the fear radiating from his body. Elvis and Leah had always been gentle to Gu Mengmeng, but even so, there would always be deep or shallow bruises on her body after sex, so with just one look, Gu Mengmeng knew what was up with the bruises on Bloom's body. Glaring fiercely at Cole, Gu Mengmeng instinctively pushed him away, throwing him onto the ground, saying, disgusting. He then drew a piece of animal skin from the side and wrapped it around Bloom's upper body to cover the traces. After being thrown by Gu Mengmeng, Cole's broken bone pierced deeper into his lungs, before being pulled out a little more. A mouthful of hot blood flowed out from his throat. Cole exhaled and used his broken elbow to support himself on the ground. Then, he used his other hand to gently wipe the blood stains at the corner of his lips. He chuckled. Not in Gu's arms, the pain actually became so dull and tasteless. With that, Cole transformed into a fox and then back instantly. This switch could put dislocated bones back in place. Broken bones were still broken, but the healing of the bones after they were put back in place was just a trivial matter for a level 5 orc. Cole's transformation was very fast, but Gu Mengmeng's eyesight was too good now, so she still saw it. A fox without a tail looks really weird. Chapter 1048. Cole. I will kill you. Oakley's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled to break free from the stray beast's grip, looking like he was going to fight to the death with Cole. But Cole did not seem to mind as he laughed sarcastically and asked, "Can't you tell that Agu doesn't want me to die?" Oakley could not hear a single word Cole said, nor did he care about the disparity between their abilities. He only felt that he was going crazy. No, he was already crazy. He just wanted to kill Cole. Kill Cole. Cole waved his hands lightly and the person who was holding Oakley released his grip. Oakley was like a trapped beast that had broken free from its chains as he pounced towards Cole. And before he could even touch a single strand of Cole's hair, Cole released his beast pressure and pressed Oakley onto the ground. And this time, not only Oakley was severely injured, the rest of the people present were also affected, regardless of friend or foe. Third level and below orcs were injured again and Bloom was directly pressed back into his original form. Leah and the other fourth-level orcs held onto their chests and forced themselves to take a deep breath, refusing to give in with their pride. Fifth-level orcs also had a great disparity in abilities and those who were not at their peak would still feel fearful of this beast pressure. The only ones who did not care about it other than Cole himself were Elvis and Gu Mengmeng. Looking at Oakley who was lying on the ground beside his feet, Cole sat up and sneered, "You are so weak and yet you still dare to say such arrogant words. TSK TSK TSK, trash." Gu Mengmeng walked over and helped Oakley up. She then looked at Cole with a cold smile and said, "In my eyes, you are also weak. You are just a despicable person who held Xixian hostage so that I don't dare to kill you. What right do you have to talk so arrogantly and belittle others? If we are talking about trash, then you, Cole, are the number one in the beast world." "Ah Gu, you are teasing me again." Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng with a doting expression and said those words which made Gu Mengmeng shudder all over. She spat out, "So damn disgusting." Oakley was already unable to exert any strength from the pressure and could not even stand up. He just gently pushed Gu Mengmeng's hand away and crawled to Bloom's side. He hugged him tightly in his arms and wrapped him up tightly with the hide that was used to cover his private parts. He was so careful, so protective. "Ah Boo, it's me, it's me. Don't be afraid, I will accompany you, yeah." With every word Oakley uttered, a trickle of blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. However, he did not seem to notice it as he smiled at the little snake in his arms that had fainted from the beast pressure. Kissing his head, she whispered, "Sorry, I am too useless. I can't protect you. You always say that I am smart. But what is the use of being smart? I tried my best to set up a trap to save you but in the end, I still failed miserably." Bloom moved slightly in Oakley's arms and forced his eyes open. He wanted to transform into a human and talk to Oakley, but how could a second-level beast withstand Cole's fifth-level coercion? It was already a miracle that he was still conscious at this moment. Sticking out his snake tongue, Bloom licked away the tears on Oakley's face and hissed something. Oakley could not understand but Gu Mengmeng could. Chapter 1049. No. I won't allow it. I won't allow it. Oakley locked Bloom tightly in his arms like a madman. He used all his strength but still felt that it was not tight enough, as if Bloom would not leave him as long as he did not let go. Bloom's eyelids started to blur and he could only rely on his snake sense of the king of his tribe to turn his head to look at Gu Mengmeng with difficulty. Hiss, hiss hiss, Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and did not say a word. Bloom was telling her that everything Oakley did was for his sake and that he was kidnapped by Cole because he was too weak, forcing Oakley to listen to his threats. Everything was his fault. He was begging Gu Mengmeng to forgive Oakley. "Ah Boo. I beg you, for my sake, bear with it a little more, alright, MMM?" Oakley didn't know what Bloom was talking about but a lover is so sensitive that he could feel the life draining out of the person in his arms. "Hiss hiss, hiss," Bloom was saying, "Please, forgive him, save him." Without waiting for Gu Mengmeng's reply or another sentence of Oakley's plea, Bloom breathed his last breath with his murky eyes. His originally cold and soft body collapsed bit by bit. The entire weight of the snake had returned to Oakley's arms. He had never felt so heavy before. In the past, no matter how Oakley carried him, he would always feel as light as a feather, "Ah." Oakley howled at the sky until he could no longer make a sound. He continued to howl at the sky with his mouth wide open, as though he was questioning why the heavens wanted to take bosom away. His pair of scarlet eyes were bloodshot and even bulging out. An unprecedented sense of helplessness, no matter how he howled, his voice could not be transmitted. Endless despair enveloped him so tightly that he could not breathe. His heart fell into the abyss along with Bloom's limp body. There was no end, then, blood flowed out from the corner of his eyes. Followed by his ears, corners of his mouth, nostrils. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and wanted to stop Oakley, but Leah hugged her waist. He did not say anything and just shook his head. Gu Mengmeng did not know how much time had passed, but this was the first time she felt that counting time in seconds was so long and torturous. Oakley's body went limp and fell to the side while Bloom's body was still tightly held in his arms. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and turned to glare at Cole with hatred. Cole smiled at Gu Mengmeng fearlessly. "Ah, Gu, your gaze is so beautiful. Just like a poisonous rose blooming in the darkest night. Heh, that's a fatal temptation." Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said word by word, "Cole, what exactly do you want? Why did you appear by my side like a ghost? Do you want to get me or kill me? No matter what, just come at me directly. What kind of ability is it to always use the people around you to make a move?" Cole took Gu Mengmeng's angry roars as if they were words of love. Then, he smiled widely and said, "It's so rare that Gu is starting to care about me. What do I want? I want to pull you into my world, and then look at the world's peerless scenery with me. You know, after being alone for a long time, you will still feel lonely. If you can pull me, just come and pull me. Why are you torturing an innocent person?" Chapter 1050. Gu, actually I don't mind if you hate me, but I mind if you misunderstand me. Cole explained with a look of, "I really can't do anything to you. As for me, I did take away the little snake you left behind, but as long as Oakley is obedient and helps you take care of Sauter, I will not mistreat his little lover. You drugged and raped him, and you still say you won't mistreat him?" Gu Mengmeng was almost roaring. Cole chuckled and replied calmly, "It was Oakley who initiated the challenge. I just accepted it. Now that he is dead, you can say whatever you want." Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth. Cole shook his head and said, "Have you ever thought that the people lying here are the leaders and the main fighting force of the surrounding tribes? The weakest of them is a third-level orc. What right do you think they have to listen to Oakley, a second-level orc, and go against the stray beasts?" Water source. Gu Mengmeng knew the answer almost without thinking. But she did not want to answer Cole and just stared at him coldly. Cole did not force Gu Mengmeng to answer and just continued, "These 16 tribes became Oakley's blade for the sake of the water source, and those tribes who could not get the water source will become a knife hanging over your head." Cole's gaze casually looked towards the bushes not far away, where there were still many corpses. He chuckled, as if he was laughing at Oakley's wild imagination. His tone was filled with contempt and sarcasm as he continued, "If there's anything good about him, it's probably that he understands me. He knows that I will never allow others to use the same method to coerce you, so he purposely spread the news that you can get the water source if you get the messenger of the beast deity, and also spread the news of me holding Qi Xian hostage to threaten you. He knew that he would not be able to fool me if he was just bluffing, so in order to force me to appear here on time, he really risked your life." Cole pointed to the bushes and continued, "If I had come a little later, Sandy's entire family would have already been caught by them. In such a dangerous situation, they would not be like me who would consider your feelings and treat Sandy like a gentleman. Those 6 newborn leopards would probably all die tonight." Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng lazily and casually. He asked with a smile, "If I pinched Sandy and asked you to change the well, based on your character, you would have dug it without hesitation, right?" Gu Mengmeng did not say anything, but she knew he was right. As long as Sandy was fine, digging a well was nothing. Cole seemed to understand her thoughts and said, "But have you ever thought about it? Once you dig this well, Sandy's family will become the target that the entire beast world will fight over. Everyone's eyes will be on them, because their family is equivalent to a water source, or even, a bargaining chip that can be used to get whatever you want." Gu Mengmeng froze and frowned. She was not afraid of encountering anything, not only because she was extremely powerful, but also because Elvis and Leah would always protect her. But what about Sandy? She was just a gentle half-orc female, the one who could not even defeat Nina in a fight. If she were to be pushed to the heart of the storm. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. Chapter 1051. Actually, Gu Mengmeng wanted to refute Cole. She wanted to say that Oakley was not that kind of person, he would not do such a thing. She wanted to say that she had already dug a well in St. Nazaire and many people knew about it, so how could she say that Oakley was the one who spread the news? She wanted to say that many people knew that he had used Qi to threaten her, so it was not strange for someone to do the same thing in order to obtain a water source. She wanted to say that it was just a coincidence for the surrounding 16 tribes to appear here today. However, even if she said these words, would she believe it herself? Many people knew that there was a well in St. Nazaire, but most of them thought that the messenger of the beast deity had descended, so the beast deity bestowed the eye of life upon her. Only the people in St. Nazaire knew that the well was dug by Gu Mengmeng. Cole was a stray beast and rarely appeared in public. Most of the time, he hid in the shadows and plotted strategies. That time when he openly followed beside her was because he had used a camouflage technique to disguise himself as Leah. Moreover, Qi had been by Cole's side even before his evolution. Everyone only knew that Cole had a little wolf cub by his side, but who knew that that little wolf cub was the second son of the messenger of the beast deity? Damn it. Gu Mengmeng looked at Oakley and Bloom's corpses and scolded with reddened eyes. Why are you apologizing? If you didn't King apologize, I could still defend you. Now that you see me being forced into a corner, are you satisfied? You still dare to say that we are friends. Is there a friend like you? If only Oakley could keep up the act and not lose his rationality due to guilt, not daring to look at Gu Mengmeng and even apologizing to her. Then, just based on Gu Mengmeng's animosity towards Cole, Gu Mengmeng could firmly say that she did not believe a single word of what Cole said now. No matter how logical and unlogical his deductions were, she would not believe it. Even if he threw all the evidence in her face, she would not believe it. Because you are Cole, I will not believe anything you say. But, Oakley and Bloom apologized to her before they died. Ah Gu, I protected your friend. Cole grinned, so, shouldn't you express your gratitude to me? Thank you, if you weren't holding Qishuan's life in your hands, would really want to thank you properly. Cole obviously understood the meaning behind the word thank you. He shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly and said, Ah Gu, I can't die now, just bear with it a little longer and hate me a little more. When I push you to the position that belongs to you, I will remove the connection between me and Qi. When that time comes, you can do whatever you want, alright? He sounded like he was coaxing his girlfriend who was throwing a tantrum. So fucking disgusting. Ah Gu, I saved Sandy all for you. If you don't express your gratitude to me, then I can only ask for a gift from Sandy. You know, I don't like being owed anything. But I don't know if Sandy can afford to pay the stray beasts for saving her life. After all, she just gave birth not long ago. Gu Mengmeng's mind exploded. Natalie had once told her how stray beasts treated females. Chapter 1052. Cole held the tooth that was knocked out in his mouth and did not spit it out. He just turned his face back and looked at Gu Mengmeng with a faint smile. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said, I thank you for saving my friend. Cole covered his mouth with his hand and pretended to cough twice. He hid the tooth in his palm and then spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he had spat out enough blood today and this mouthful was not too sudden. Then, he still chuckled and said, You're welcome. Gu Mengmeng raised her leg and stepped on Cole's shoulder, flattening him to the ground. Then, she looked down at Cole like a female bandit and said word by word, I thank you for saving Sandy. But I will first note down the debt of killing Oakley and Bloom. When I find a way to dispel the connection between you and Qi, I will definitely settle the score with you. Alright, I look forward to it. Cole did not struggle and just laid down to look at Gu Mengmeng. He laughed softly and his gaze was gentle. Gu Mengmeng stood up and kicked Bode. Can you stand up? Bode's injuries were not serious. It was mainly because of the beast pressure that had exploded out so many times that he felt extremely uncomfortable. But now, this scene, Bode gritted his teeth and nodded. He supported himself against the wall and staggered to stand up. Gu Mengmeng looked at his cowardly manner and could not trust him to hand Sandy over. She could only glare at him and then went to help Sandy up herself. Sandy, stay at my place tonight, all right? Sandy had been scared out of her wits today and her eyes were glazed over. She only regained her senses after Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence and nodded in a daze. Gu Mengmeng threw the 6 little milk buns to Heda and Jiaoyu, then helped Sandy out. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances and searched through the pile of corpses. They carried Sandy's partners on their shoulders and brought them along. After returning to the stone castle, Sandy kept holding onto Gu Mengmeng's hand as she was too afraid. Gu Mengmeng did not struggle and arranged a room for Sandy on the first floor. She stayed in the room with Sandy for the night. The next morning, the sun rose as usual. Leah stayed behind in the stone castle to take care of Sandy's severely handicapped family while Elvis appeared at the entrance of Sodor as an absolutely powerful character. The majestic Elvis just stood there with his hands behind his back and the 16 witch doctors from the tribe who came to demand an explanation immediately fell silent. They did not even dare to say another word. No matter what agreement your leader had with Oakley previously, now that Oakley is dead, your leader is also dead, so the agreement is automatically terminated. Elvis's words were very calm, there was not even a hint of fluctuation in his tone. How can this be? That's right. The strongest warrior in our tribe is dead. How can you go back on your words? This isn't what we agreed on, this, ha. Elvis sneered and said, come and fight if you're not convinced. If you win, you have the final say. Strength was the most important, and the winner would have all the spoils. This was a fixed rule in the beast world. Look at this black-faced evil spirit in front of them. Heh, even the strongest warrior in the tribe might not be able to defeat him when he was alive. Now, these witch doctors want to fight him? Heh, even if they were to be his punching bag, he would despise them for being too soft. Chapter 1053. On a hill 3,000 meters away from the Sodor tribe, Cole was lying on his back, basking in the sun. He summoned a stray beast and handed him a small beast skin bag. Go to Zacharias and deliver this to the young master. Yes. The stray beast did not dare to ask further. He just kept the small beast skin bag and transformed into his beast form before flying off. Another stray beast came to report. Mighty Cole, the 16 tribes have all submitted to Sodor. Elvis was the one who announced the acceptance personally. Cole chuckled and nodded, as if everything was within his expectations. Issue an order. From today onwards, the stray beasts are forbidden to attack will be added to these 16 tribes. Yes. The person who reported nodded respectfully and retreated. Mighty Cole. A female sat against the light. She gently caressed Cole's chest with her little hands. Her voice was soft, with a tinge of shyness and timidity. She said in a very loving manner, "You have done so many things for the great messenger. Why don't you tell her directly? If she knows how well you have treated her, she will definitely be very touched." Treated? As if he had heard a joke, Cole's lips curled upwards happily. Tell me, what good things do you think I did to her? Is it worth it for her to be touched? Let's not talk about the distant ones and just talk about the recent ones. That side was obviously about to close the net, but because Sodor's side did not send the communication information that was supposed to be sent over, you gave up the plan that you had painstakingly laid down and rushed over to Sodor, afraid that she would really fall into Oakley's trap, so you rushed over to protect her. Ha. Cole's hand gently stroked the female's ears as he said nonchalantly, "You were tricked by Oakley?" Ha, Gu is the messenger of the beast deity that I personally groomed. How could she fall into that kind of scum's trap? Don't forget, she still has Leah, who is known as the smartest person in the beast world, and Elvis, whose skills have reached the peak. The black-white double ghosts aren't just for show. Cole paused for a moment. He seemed to recall how Gu Mengmeng glared at him with red eyes last night. That pair of clear and clean eyes only had a shadow of him at that time. Then why did you rush over? That female saw that Cole was obviously in a good mood and seemed to like this topic. Hence, she carefully pretended to be curious. In fact, Cole was in a good mood. The corners of his lips were still curled up. He said lazily, "In this world, I am the only one who can make things difficult for Ah Gu. Did anyone else deserve to upset her? Hee, just thinking about it makes me unhappy." "Lord Cole is not honest," the female said softly. "Didn't you already sense it when Oakley secretly contacted the 16 tribes? But you didn't stop his actions and even added fuel to the fire without leaving a trace. Last night, you killed all the leaders and strongest warriors of the 16 tribes. Isn't it to remove all the thorns from the 16 tribes so that the great messenger can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor without being held back?" The female was so excited that she seemed to have forgotten everything else. She did not notice the cold glint beneath Cole's smile and continued, "Oh, that's right, Dora. From the stray beast's attack to Leonard's death, it was you who helped the great messenger peel off the hard shell so that the great messenger could enjoy the sweet fruits." Cole. Great messenger, out of topic. Alright, today's update is over. Another bunch of people had died. When I was chatting with the other authors yesterday, they said that their readers were anticipating the death of the male and female protagonists every day. I said, the question my little baby asked me every day was, "Susu, how many more episodes does Cole have left?" I calculated with my fingers. I can't say it. Chapter 1054. You think too highly of yourself. Cole's lips were still curled upwards, but his hand was tightly gripping onto the female's neck without any mercy. It was only when the female almost fainted from the lack of oxygen that Cole released his hand, allowing her to fall limply onto his knees. Then, he stroked her ears as if he was caressing a pet. His tone was gentle and had a tinge of pampering, but it was mixed with a dangerous warning tone. "I don't like females that are too smart, understand? Unless that female was called Gu Mengmeng. Yes, mighty Cole, I have crossed the line." The female didn't dare to say any more nonsense. She curled up into a ball and lay trembling on Cole's knees. Cole caressed her furry ears, squinting his eyes as he looked up to enjoy the sunlight, as if he wasn't the one who wanted to strangle her to death just now. This female wasn't wrong, but she only knew half of it. He only discovered it when Oakley contacted the 16 tribes. What kind of joke was that? The moment he captured Bloom, the trap had already been laid. And when he knew that Gu Mengmeng had left a little snake for Oakley, he had already started to lay out his plans. Their love was a product of Cole's meticulous design. To think that they had fallen so deeply into it that one died while the other died from grief. TSK, how cheap. Lowering his head to look at the female on his knees, Cole's smile held a trace of contempt. She could only see the surface, but she still dared to boast in front of him. Ah Gu was still the best. That sly little fox was still the best. When she was analyzing Dora's situation, there were clearly only a few scattered clues, but she managed to piece together 80% of the original picture. She looked so beautiful at that time that one couldn't help but want to set up even more elaborate traps to trap her, and then let her slowly dismantle them. Thinking of Gu Mengmeng, Cole's mood improved again. He caressed the female's head and said, "Go back, don't let Ah Gu discover your identity. Otherwise, I am not a person who knows how to be protective of the fairer sex." Yes. The female felt as if she had been pardoned. She then retreated cautiously. Cole narrowed his eyes as he watched her leave. Then, he gave a low laugh in exasperation. Why does Ah Gu like half-orcs so much? He's obviously very lowly. On the other side, Elvis had settled the matters of the 16 tribes. The first thing he did upon returning to the stone castle was to hug Gu Mengmeng. I haven't seen her for the whole morning. I miss her so much. After taking 2 deep breaths of her scent, the exhaustion in his body was dispelled. How is it? Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis placed her on his thighs and played with her soft little hands while answering. We followed Lee's instructions to distribute the order of drawing water. It's just that there are too many loopholes left behind by Oakley. Although the 16 tribes have submitted to us, the benefits involved cannot be underestimated. If we don't handle it properly, there will definitely be a huge mess. I think Leah is the only one who can handle this mess. Gu Meng Meng frowned. You mean, we are going to stay in Sauder permanently? Elvis kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead and said, silly girl, we will only stay at the place you like. As for whether Sauder is chaotic or not, who cares? Gu Meng Meng face-bombed. What a willful Elvis. Chapter 1055. Gu Meng Meng turned to look at Leah. Leah swayed his tail and didn't say a word. He just cast his gaze to the side. Gu Meng Meng followed his gaze. Jiaoyu? Gu Meng Meng blurted out instinctively. Leah nodded. Qi Xian and Kanwu are already in charge of Zacharias. If Huda and Jiaoyu are still treated like children by your side, they will probably feel very disappointed. Although they don't say it, wolves are not animals that can be tied to one side like dogs. Gu Meng Meng sighed. Sigh, children are no longer up to their mothers. Their wings have hardened at just 1 year old. She hadn't even enjoyed the times when her children hugged her thighs and acted coquettishly. But did she really have to tie her children up for her own selfish reasons? Just as Elvis had said, as long as you are happy, what's the big deal about raising a bunch of useless wolf cubs? Raising them until they were useless, you guys discuss it, I don't care anymore. Gu Meng Meng buried herself in Elvis's arms, not wanting to say anything else. Leah chuckled as he walked over and called Huda and Jiaoyu to his side. After a brief discussion, the matter was settled. Sauder had always been a turbulent place and Cole's power was deeply entrenched here. The newly joined 16 tribes were also unstable, and if they wanted to control the situation, they had to have the ability to suppress everyone. They had to be at least at the level of Elvis or Wabi. But Gu Meng Meng liked Saint Nazaire more than Sauder, so Elvis could not stay. Wabi was restricted by the seasons. He had to stay in the Snake King Valley during the winter and dry seasons, so he could not stay here either. Peter could come over to control the situation. He also had the ability to manage the tribe, but he had to take care of Natalie and the 6 little ones by himself. He could not do anything else. Moreover, Natalie only had one partner, Peter. Once Peter was attacked and pinned down, Natalie and the 6 little ones would be in a protective vacuum state. By then, as long as they killed Natalie, they could easily kill Peter. So if Peter were to take over Sauder, he would have to at least wait until the 6 little ones had grown to a certain level. Now that he could not find a suitable strong warrior, he could only use his status to suppress others. The blood of the mighty beast deity, the sons of the mighty messenger, with the 2 of them holding the fort here, Saint Nazaire, Sauder and Zacharias would become an impregnable iron triangle. No matter which of them was attacked, the other 2 would immediately launch a frantic counterattack to rescue them, and they would do so regardless of the cost. There was a kind of outstanding ability called, My Mother is Gu Meng Meng. The dry season was not over yet and Gu Meng Meng was not in a hurry to leave. So Leah happened to be free and could bring Huda and Jiaoyu to familiarize themselves with government affairs. Because of what happened that night, Sandy was quite frightened. Gu Meng Meng did not let her return to her original stone house, but let her stay in the stone castle temporarily. On one hand, it was to comfort Sandy, and on the other hand, it was more convenient for Leah to treat Colin and the rest. And from Sandy's explanation, Gu Meng Meng knew that she had misunderstood Cole on at least one matter that day. That was Cole sitting on the heavily injured Colin and the rest, not to bully them, but to protect them. Sandy said that Cole was sitting there and said, I want to see who has the ability to take a life from under my feet. Chapter 1056. The dry season gradually passed and Sandy slowly walked out from the trauma of that night. Other than being extremely reliant on Gu Meng Meng, everything else was fine. Jiaoyu and Huda were busy following Leah every day, but they always had confident smiles on their faces and did not feel exhausted. This made Gu Mengmeng feel proud and a little disappointed at the same time. Her children were too independent and had their own opinions. Looking at the 6 little ones running around Sandy with hidden bitterness, Gu Mengmeng sighed in her heart. How good would it be if her sons could stay young and stick to her like this? Little Munchkin was still very affectionate with Gu Mengmeng and often hung onto her, rubbing and licking her body. This greatly satisfied Gu Mengmeng's motherly heart. The dry season passed quickly. Although it was not peaceful, at least they had survived. Oakley's death was actually quite a blow to Gu Mengmeng. After all, they were friends. Even if he did something unfavorable to her, wasn't the greatness of love because of its selfishness? If what Oakley did had succeeded, it might have caused some trouble for Gu Mengmeng. But what was the point of causing trouble between friends? What made Gu Mengmeng the most unhappy was that he was clearly in trouble but refused to seek help from her. He could only bear the burden of guilt and worry alone. If he was still alive, Gu Mengmeng would probably beat him up until he could not take care of himself and scold him. Then, let Leah treat his injuries and let Bloom take good care of him. Unfortunately, reality cruelly took away the ifs and only left the result. She wanted to beat him up and then forgive him. But he did not even give her the chance to do so. He just rudely left a sorry and disappeared forever. The first rain of the rainy season announced the end of the dry season. The water sources of the various tribes gradually became plentiful and the number of people coming to fetch water gradually decreased. In the end, Leah gave an order that Sauter's water wells would not be opened to the public until next year's dry season. When Leah was free, he came back to play with Gu Mengmeng and threw all the administrative matters to Heda and Jiayu. The bunch of stubborn elders in the Elders' Council were surprisingly obedient and none of them dared to find trouble with these 2 little wolf cubs. Instead, they all tried their best to assist them. Gu Mengmeng did not feel anything but Leah lowered his head and chuckled. He thought to himself, are you afraid that you will become the next Oakley and be targeted by Cole? Leah could understand at least 80% of what Cole was doing. He seemed to be forcing Gu Mengmeng step by step, but he was always pushing her towards the path that was most beneficial to her objectively, and even cleared away all the obstacles along the way. But this method, Gu Mengmeng would probably never accept it in her entire life. Elvis had been very busy recently and did not have much time to accompany Gu Mengmeng as Colin's injuries were gradually recovering. Moreover, Elvis realized that Colin had already reached the peak of 3rd level. He must have accumulated a lot of battle experience before Cole arrived and was just short of breaking through the bottleneck. Previously, because he was injured, he had to recuperate. Now that he had recovered, he had to immediately break through the boundary of level 3 and enter level 4. His combat power would increase exponentially. Colin himself was particularly enthusiastic. He didn't want to see Sandy curled up in the corner, shivering. It was still drizzling. It was already the 3rd day. Chapter 1057. Gu Mengmeng stood up and walked up to him. She hugged him gently. Little shit, you are here. Wabi was taken aback. He reached out and poked Gu Mengmeng's head. Did something go wrong with you? Normally, shouldn't she give him a tight slap the moment they met and send him flying? Little shit, are you looking for a beating again? Why was the way she opened up was different today? Gu Mengmeng giggled foolishly. She bounced her head back onto Wabi's chest like a roly-poly doll. His body was different from Elvis and Leah. His body was always cold, as if it could not be warmed up no matter what. Moreover, Wabi was actually quite handsome, but Gu Mengmeng just couldn't sense any hormonal signals from him. Perhaps this was the state of 2 people who both thought highly of each other but didn't have any romantic feelings for each other. Perhaps this was the state that existed when 2 people both thought highly of each other but didn't have any romantic feelings. Gu Mengmeng hugged him for a long while before sighing. She told Wabi about Oakley and Bloom's situation. Wabi looked as if he had just been enlightened. Ah, so you are behaving strangely today. You are hugging me instead of hitting me? Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Wabi with a slightly aggrieved expression. Will you fall in love with someone one day and betray me for her? Is your brain filled with shit? Don't you know that talking about love will delay me from leveling up? I am not stupid. Wabi-I looked at Gu Mengmeng in disdain. He rolled his eyes. But, since he betrayed you first, what are you so sad about? Gu Mengmeng looked up at Wabi-I. What if I am forced to destroy the Snake King Valley one day and then die after apologizing to you? What will you do? Wabi-I immediately roared. I dare you to King die. Gu Mengmeng shrugged. See, you don't even care about the Snake King Valley. You only care about my life. Wabi-I was taken aback for 2 seconds. Then, he snorted. I think I can understand how you feel. It is just like how snakes suddenly abandoned the entire Snake King Valley and disappeared. He let me know that not every farewell can be well prepared. The ones that will hurt will often catch you off guard. Gu Mengmeng looked askance at Wabi-I and did not speak for a long time. She just took out 2 cups of water and handed one to Wabi-I. She held the other in her hand and clinked it lightly before downing it in one gulp. Wabi-I didn't understand, but the atmosphere forced him to drink a cup of water like Gu Mengmeng. The rain lasted for 7 days before it stopped. Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes lazily and said, let's go to Zacharias to see Natalie and the children, then return to St. Nazaire before the rainy season ends. Elvis and Leah never had any objections to Gu Mengmeng's words. They just nodded and roughly packed their luggage. Colin finally broke through to the 4th level after 3 consecutive days and nights of hellish training. Gu Mengmeng was initially worried that Zacharias was too close to the stray beasts camp and it would be inconvenient for Sandy to head over. She wanted Colin to bring Sandy back to St. Nazaire first, but Sandy shook her head and said she wanted to stay behind. Chapter 1058. Gu Mengmeng didn't insist and just nodded. She hugged Sandy and instructed Colin to protect her well. Colin patted his chest loudly. Gu Mengmeng smiled in exasperation. He was already a 4th-level beast, but his intelligence could never keep up with his strength. His stubborn attitude seemed rather reliable. Leah pulled Jialu along to instruct him on some matters to take note of in the tribe, while Elvis called Huda to the side and said, protect yourself well, don't make my female cry. Huda's expression changed. Everything had been settled. The next morning, Gu Mengmeng and the rest left Sauter and headed towards Zacharias. Wabi-I instigated Gu Mengmeng to visit Snake at the beast deity's place, but Gu Mengmeng rejected him. She knew that Snake had been living well. Even if she didn't visit him, he wouldn't be lonely. Now, she wanted to spend time with those who needed her, like Elvis, Leah and Wabi-I. Moreover, Gu Mengmeng still remembered Elvis's words. He said that every time she went to visit the beast deity, he would feel especially uneasy. He didn't even dare to blink, afraid that she would never return. This feeling of worry must be unbearable. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Elvis to suffer such grievances. The rainy season was the beast world's best weather. It wasn't as hot and humid as the rainy season, nor was it as dry or deadly as the dry season. The wind at this time was slightly chilly, while the sun shone with a faint warmth. Walking between the heavens and the earth, one could see the radiance everywhere, making one's mood extremely good. When they reached Zacharias, they saw Peter at the side of the dirt strip. Both of them were a little surprised, but Peter was clearly much calmer. Why are you here? Gu Mengmeng spoke first. Peter replied, this is the closest place to the stray beast camp. With me sitting here, they won't dare to act rashly. You left Natalie alone? Gu Mengmeng said as she followed Peter into the tribe. Peter snorted coldly. He looked at Elvis and then at Gu Mengmeng. What do you think? What a huge grievance, Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. Why? Natalie has a new lover and neglected you? Pfft. Peter exploded. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly. Fabricating gossip about her own mother-in-law and telling it to her father-in-law, there was probably no other daughter-in-law like her. Peter was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would say something that would infuriate him to death, so he simply said, the 6 little ones like to practice martial arts and hang on to him every day. Natalie just keeps running around those kids and doesn't have time for me. Elvis sighed, then patted Peter's shoulder. Acting like a brother in hardship, he said, I understand. Peter and Elvis looked at each other, sighing and shaking their heads. This father and son actually had an inexplicable tacit understanding on this matter. When he entered the tribe, Kanwu was fighting with someone. He was surrounded by a circle of people, but no one intervened. Qi Xian saw Gu Mengmeng and the rest from afar but did not say anything. He just smiled at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng sneaked over and hugged Qi Xian, who was covered in furry wolf cubs. She then asked in a low voice, "What happened?" Chapter 1059. Little Uncle was naturally referring to the little wolf cub hanging on Qishuan's body. Gu Mengmeng took a closer look and saw that the hind leg in Qishuan's arms was injured. Although it was not serious and it was just a scratch, but that was their damn little wolf cub. Without another word, Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and charged into the battlefield. She stepped on the second-level orc who was fighting with Kanwu. The orc who was being stepped on was stunned. When he looked up to see Gu Mengmeng, he was clearly stunned and could not say a word. Kanwu was also taken aback. Then, he immediately stood beside Gu Mengmeng timidly. "Mother," Gu Mengmeng pointed at Kanwu's nose. "Scram to one side. I will settle the score with you later." "All right." Ever since Kanwu saw Gu Mengmeng teach Cole a lesson, he did not dare to talk back to her. Crestfallen, he ran to Qishuan's side and whispered, "Second brother, why didn't you warn me?" Qi Xian was also very innocent. "I was thinking that if you could not defeat them, I would go up." Who knew that mother would suddenly charge forward? Great messenger. The orc who was being stepped on by Gu Mengmeng finally reacted. He stammered, "Why did you hit me?" Gu Mengmeng flexed her wrists. "You hit my sons, so I will hit you. If you are not happy, call your mother over and let her hit me." With that, Gu Mengmeng pinched the male's thigh hard. He howled in pain. Gu Mengmeng looked at the purple bean on the ground. "I heard that you took care of my children. This is a gift in return." As he spoke, he slapped the level 2 orc again, accurately knocking out one of his back teeth. Then, he said, "Next time I hear you gossip, I'll pull your tongue out. Do you hear me?" The male covered his face and nodded. Then, he asked pitifully, "What do you mean by gossip?" Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes. She retracted her foot and turned to walk away. She hooked one arm around Kanwu's neck and used her index finger to flick Kanwu and Qishuan's heads. "Didn't I tell the two of you that when fighting a tiger, blood brothers will fight together? The opponent is a level 2 beast, why don't the two of you attack together? What if I suffer losses?" "I'm being lectured." The two brothers lowered their heads and obediently admitted their mistakes. "Mom, we know we were wrong." Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and pulled Kanwu out from her arms, throwing him to the side. This kind of challenge is always one-on-one. It's against the rules for two brothers to fight against one. Gu Mengmeng exploded. "What do you mean by not following the rules? I am in charge of Zacharias now. I am the rule. My rule is not to let my son suffer any losses." Elvis chuckled. "Then why did you show mercy just now and not kill him directly?" Gu Mengmeng smacked her lips and said, "I'm not a homicidal maniac who would want someone's life just because of a little conflict between kids." Elvis rubbed Gu Mengmeng's head and kissed it, saying dotingly, "Tough mouth but soft heart." Burke knew that Gu Mengmeng had arrived and hurried out to welcome her. However, he stopped 10 steps away and looked at her radiant smiling face under the sunlight, as well as her happy partners, one in black and one in white, beside her. Even the snake beast, which was emitting a sinister aura, felt warm because of her presence. As for him. Chapter 1060. Mimicking solder, Burke also opened up a meeting room in Zacharias. There was no room made of stone, so he could only dig a spacious cave. He found a huge rock and dug out a stone chair with his claws. Then, he covered it with a tiger skin. How should she put it? It looked like an imitation of Solder's meeting room. Although it was not satisfactory, Gu Mengmeng was not picky. She turned around and sat on the chair. Looking at Burke, she asked, the people here don't look easy to get along with. Can you handle it? Burke nodded and smiled. With Kanwu and Qishuan's help, it won't be a big problem. Gu Mengmeng nodded and didn't say anything else. She always felt a little awkward when facing Burke. It was the kind of feeling where you knew he liked you, but he was trying his best to hold it in. You didn't even have the chance to reject him, and could only act dumb and not understand. Sigh, it was tiring to put on an act, but it was also tiring to be forced to cooperate. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything, Burke was clearly a little uneasy. He pretended to cough to suppress his palpitations. Then, with a flickering gaze, he said, the kid who fought with Kanwu today was Leonard's younger brother, Victor. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and interrupted Burke. Why? Are you afraid that I will hold a grudge against you? Burke hesitated for a moment before nodding. I promised after entering the tribe that I would do my best to protect them, so, Gu Mengmeng waved her hands. Don't worry, I have no intention of pursuing the matter. After all, he hit our little cub, and I have already hit him back. He scolded our child, and I knocked out one of his teeth. An eye for an eye, and we are even now. Borg nodded and said, then, are you going to see Natalie? Gu Mengmeng nodded. Then, she stood up. Just let these two rascals accompany me. You can go ahead with your work. Burke pursed his lips, then nodded in response. Kanwu led Gu Mengmeng and the rest towards Natalie's house, while Qishuan stayed behind. Only after Gu Mengmeng and the rest were far away did he nudge Burke with his elbow. Before my mother came, you have been longing for her every day. Now that she's here, why aren't you even looking at her? Borg smiled bitterly and said, I'm afraid of seeing her smile at me. I can't have her, but I can't forget her. Qishuan smiled and shook his head. He patted Burke's shoulder and chased after Gu Mengmeng. Natalie's cave was located at the edge of the area. She claimed that it was more peaceful and undisturbed, but Gu Mengmeng knew that it was most likely because the old tribesmen of Zacharias were unhappy with Peter's status as a stray beast, so they were ostracized. Gu Mengmeng offered to fetch Natalie back to Saint Nazaire with her, but Natalie rejected. She said that she liked her current life. She could be with the person she loved, and could also help Elvis take care of Kanwu and Qishuan. This made her feel very satisfied. As for what others thought, she didn't really care. Gu Mengmeng admired Natalie's open-mindedness. Anyway, if it were her, she would definitely not be able to stand being pointed at like this every day. After visiting Natalie, Gu Mengmeng didn't intend to stay for long. She wanted to head back to Saint Nazaire. Chapter 1061. Kanwu and Qishuan came to send Gu Mengmeng off, but before they reached the separation zone, a tiger leaped out. If it was before she transmigrated, Gu Mengmeng would probably feel afraid, but now, you are. Gu Mengmeng looked at the tiger blocking her way and asked. The tiger shook its fur and transformed into a human. It was Victor, who had fought with Kanwu that day, the younger brother of Leonard's second-level beast. Gu Mengmeng raised her eyebrows and smiled mischievously. Oh, you know I am leaving, so you are here to take revenge? No. Victor raised his head like a bandit. With one hand on his waist and the other pointing at Gu Mengmeng, he said, I want to mate with you. Pfft. Gu Mengmeng choked on her saliva. She laughed and said, Child, did I beat you silly? Victor's face was extremely red, but he still maintained his bandit demeanor. He pointed at Gu Mengmeng and said, I am already an adult, and a second-level beast. I am not a child. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. Looking at Victor's face that looked as young as Kanwu's, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. Little friend, are you even 3 years old? Victor snorted proudly and said, 3 years old? Ha, female, are you looking down on me? Let me tell you, I am already 5 years old. Pfft. Ha 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 ha. Burp. Gu Mengmeng's face turned red from his cuteness. She patted Elvis's shoulder and laughed so hard in his arms that she could not stand up straight. So, she was being teased. And he was being teased by a 5-year-old kid? You like me that much? You are actually so happy to hear that I want to mate with you, TSK, what a useless female. Victor said those words of disdain with an air of arrogance. But his little eyes kept glancing at Gu Mengmeng. Clearing his throat, he said, no wonder, your partners are all so old. It is normal for them to like a young, strong and charming male like me. There is no time like the present. Let's mate today, then I will leave with you. Elvis and Lee's faces had already turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Within a radius of 500 miles, one could clearly feel the low pressure. Yet, Victor did not know whether to say that a newborn calf was not afraid of a tiger or to be more direct, that he was a little slow and had no sense of danger at all. He even raised his little chin and said, your home or my home? As for mating, you probably won't be able to leave today. Let's change the date to tomorrow. Gu Mengmeng really did not want to laugh. She really wanted to treat this sudden confession seriously, but she could not control herself. Victor was completely immersed in his own imagination because of Gu Mengmeng's incessant laughter. He cleared his throat and said in a domineering manner, why aren't you coming over? You only know how to laugh. Humph, I'll make you cry later. Gu Mengmeng laughed until her stomach hurt. She turned around and hugged Elvis's neck, laughing like a mantis shrimp. Elvis stood at the same spot with a black face. Leah, on the other hand, smiled lightly and elegantly. His lips curved like a crescent moon that could stir up people's hearts. His eyes sparkled with a smile. He took a step forward and said, Victor, right? If you want to mate with a female, the first thing you have to do is to issue a challenge to her partner. Do you want to choose me, or him? The sun was right above her head and her entire body seemed to be glowing. At that moment, Victor knew that the love at first sight he had in this lifetime was used up just like that. He hesitated for a few days. Every day, he would pretend to pass by Natalie's door by accident. He just wanted to look at her from afar. He did not know what he wanted to see her doing. He only knew that her existence itself made him extremely happy. Knowing that she was leaving today, he mustered his courage to block her path and confess to her. It was not that she did not understand. Her smile had nothing to do with liking him. She was just laughing at him for overestimating himself. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Chapter 1063. How could he not feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis and Leah? He was just suppressing the urge to run and risking his life in exchange for a result. In the end, he understood Gu Mengmeng's gaze. She was saying, hurry up and leave, you will die if you don't. He might as well just die. Being saved by the female he liked in such a way, he might as well die in a mating battle. After Victor ran far away, he was stopped by someone. The people who stopped him were none other than Kanwu and Qi Xian. Qi Xian was just watching the show, leaning against a tree trunk without saying a word. He was here, because his mother said, fighting a tiger is a brother, you cannot let your younger brother suffer. Victor, I treat you as my opponent, but you actually want to be my daddy? Without a second word, Kanwu directly punched Victor's face. Victor was a second-level orc, it was easy for him to dodge Kanwu's attack. Dodging with a sidestep, he suppressed the frustration in his heart and said with the air of a senior, don't mess around, you can't beat me. Victor's pretentious words made Kanwu even angrier. Without a second word, he transformed into his original form and charged forward. The wolf and tiger fought into a ball, while Qi Xian just held his forehead and watched. As long as his stupid brother did not suffer, he did not care about anything else. He was now thinking about more important things, such as, if someone passed by, how should he pretend not to know the two beasts who were fighting so miserably? After letting Victor go, Gu Mengmeng turned around and met Li's long and narrow eyes. His slender and bony fingers hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly, and with a cold smile in his eyes, he said, you promise me that if there's a male you like, you will tell me in advance and allow me to eliminate him. Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. Yeah, if there is really someone I like, I will definitely tell you in advance. Leah narrowed his eyes. Gu Mengmeng, you lied to me? Mm. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and denied. No, how would I dare? But you were clearly letting him go on purpose just now. Leah inched closer and an oppressive aura enveloped Gu Mengmeng tightly. I saw the way you winked at him. Elvis walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Leah. He did not say a word and just frowned and pursed his lips. He looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly with a pained and speechless expression. He was the first partner, so he couldn't be like Leia and say whatever she wanted. But only the heavens knew that he was so jealous that he wanted to slap that arrogant brat into meat paste. He wanted to lock Gu Mengmeng fiercely in his arms and question her brazenly like Leah why she smiled at that fellow. He wanted to loudly order her not to give anyone else a chance. But after the words rolled around in his throat, what came out was, if you like tigers, you might as well consider Oriton. At least you're stronger than him, and you're not as annoying. Leah originally thought that Elvis would at least stand on his side at this moment. But the moment Elvis said that, Leah exploded instantly. How dare you? If you dare to consider Oriton, I will slaughter him and stew him with potatoes the moment I return to Saint Nazaire. Gu Mengmeng walked past Leah and her eyes were instantly filled with tears. She looked up at Elvis. Are you serious? You want me to accept Oriton? Chapter 1064. Elvis, you have no conscience. Gu Mengmeng said as she punched Elvis's chest. She did not use much strength and it was light as a feather. After a few punches, she pounced into Elvis's arms and sobbed, You can't wait to push me to someone else? Are you sick of me now? You don't like me anymore, right? Sobs. Elvis, you have a change of heart, haven't you? He was beaten and misunderstood, but he was not angry. She behaved like a child in his arms. She clearly knew that he could not do anything to her tears, but she still squeezed out a few drops of tears to fake her tears and force him to give in. The heaviness in his heart suddenly lessened. Not because of anything else, but because at this moment, she was in his arms. Heaving a sigh of relief, Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and said, My heart hasn't changed, can I dig it out for you to see? Gu Mengmeng blinked and shook her head, saying, I won't allow you to hurt my husband. Elvis smiled bitterly and tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose, saying, I can't hurt your husband's heart, the only one who can make his heart ache is you. Gu Mengmeng wiped her tears and softened her voice, saying, I won't do anything to make my husband's heart ache. When you look at other males, your heart hurts. When you smile at other males, it hurts too. You have to accept other males, just thinking about it makes you feel so much pain that you wish you were dead. Elvis said. Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently touched Elvis's chest. Her soft fingers had a gentle power that slowly seeped into Elvis's chest, as if it was really comforting the pain in his heart. Pouting, Gu Mengmeng said, I won't smile anymore, I won't smile in front of others anymore, don't hurt, no. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's brows and said, You still have to smile, because I will hurt if you smile, but if you don't smile, I will die. He did not forget how depressed Gu Mengmeng was when Snake just died, and how torturous his life was when she did not smile. But, you can only stay in my arms. This was his final bottom line. He could not back down. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed his lips back. Silly hubby, I have nowhere else to go other than in your arms. Elvis's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. Nowhere to go? How could this be? She was so beautiful, so dazzling, someone that the whole world desired. Everyone wanted to be her home. As for her, it wasn't that she didn't have a choice. She just said that she had to have him. The gloominess in Elvis's heart completely dissipated. He pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, All right. If you have somewhere else to go in the future, I might consider tearing this world apart so that you have nowhere to go except for my embrace. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and kissed Elvis on the cheek. Yeah, your title as the leader of the Husky demolition team is not just for show. I believe in your professional abilities. He did not know what nonsense she was spouting, but just looking at her smile, he could not help but laugh along with her. Chapter 1065. Lee's heart skipped a beat. He was excited at first, but then stopped abruptly. He frowned and took a step back. His gaze was so deep that he could not even maintain his smile. He shook his head firmly and said, "No, don't mention this again in the future." Lee's reaction, Gu Mengmeng, was extremely confused. She was very sure of Lee's feelings towards her and was very confident. But, why? Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Didn't the males in the beast world yearn for offspring? Why was this fox in her family so resistant? Gu Mengmeng herself did not have the habit of giving birth, but she had always thought that since she gave birth to a litter of wolf pups for Elvis, she should at least give birth to a litter for Leah to be fair. But he actually rejected her so righteously? This suddenly made Gu Mengmeng feel a little uncomfortable. She could not describe it, but it felt weird. Leah turned his head and avoided Gu Mengmeng's gaze for the first time. He only said, "I don't like little cubs, they're too noisy and annoying." Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and shook her head. When Huda and his brothers were young, Elvis always threw them to you to raise. You treasured them so much that you never showed any impatience. Don't think that I don't know how much envy you have in your eyes every time you see the 4 little ones. Previously, I always had things to do, so I did not mention this. Now that I am free and am willing to give birth to your children, why do you look so unhappy? Why, are you afraid that I will use this to blackmail you? Leah took a deep breath and said, "Anyway, I'm not giving birth." You. Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt speechless. There was no reason, only a stance. Not giving birth meant not giving birth. Gu Mengmeng suddenly laughed. She looked up at Leah in a provocative manner and said, "If you have the ability, then don't touch me." What she meant was that unless you become a monk for your entire life, I have the final say on whether you give birth or not. Leah made a prompt decision and replied in a righteous manner, "I don't have the ability." Gu Mengmeng was amused by Lee's strong and cowardly attitude. She did not know what to say to him. Leah did not give Gu Mengmeng time to think and continued, "Just like before, just place it outside or somewhere else. As long as it is not placed there, you will not get pregnant." When Leah said that, Gu Mengmeng suddenly realized something. After giving birth to Huda and his brothers, other than the time she mated with Leah and Elvis did not seem to have planted their seeds in her body again. Glancing at Leah and then at Elvis, Gu Mengmeng frowned, realizing that things were not so simple. "Did you two discuss this beforehand?" Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis did not avoid it and just nodded his head. "Yes, we've discussed it. We already have 4 sons in our family, and all of them have lived to adulthood. This is enough. So what Leah and I mean is that we won't let you get pregnant again." "Why?" Gu Mengmeng was really speechless. "I like children, furry and cute." Chapter 1066. Gu Mengmeng decided not to walk anymore. She took 2 steps back and stood opposite Elvis and Leah. She squinted her eyes and sized them up. After a moment of silence, she opened her mouth and said, "I have Wang Xiaoxin's psychological knowledge now. If I want to, I can trick you two into revealing the truth step by step. But I don't want to do that. So you better tell me immediately, directly and clearly, what is the situation?" Leah was unwilling to say because he was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would feel burdened and guilty. Because she had 2 partners, she was always careful in relationships. She did not dare to say things that she could ask for in a righteous manner. Just like Victor's confession of love just now, no matter whether Gu Mengmeng intended to accept Victor or not, his and Elvis's actions were inappropriate in the beast world. She had the right to be angry and could even abandon him and Elvis because of this, but she anxiously coaxed them instead. This made them even more insatiable and even started to blur the boundaries of the dominant position in the family. But Leah did not forget that he was the one who forced Gu Mengmeng to such a lowly position. If he had accepted Gu Mengmeng with a clear conscience back then and did not create those troubles, then he and Gu Mengmeng would be living like deities now. Or when she and Elvis had clearly rejected him after mating, he should have let go of her easily. Even if he was secretly in pain, he should not pester her, disturb her, or force her. If that was the case, she would definitely be living in a righteous manner. But greed was human nature and it was engraved in their bones. When they could not get it, they wanted to get more. When they got more, they wanted to monopolize it. Now that monopolization was impossible, then, they were like wild beasts protecting their food, baring their teeth to warn and threaten their own kind that tried to approach them. If it was in other families, they would be despised and abandoned males. But facing their possessiveness, Gu Mengmeng tolerated it with a guilty heart. Leah sometimes felt very conflicted. He really did not want Gu Mengmeng to have other males, but he also hoped that Gu Mengmeng could be more righteous, even if she scolded him. So, when Gu Mengmeng asked him why he did not want to give birth to little foxes, he hesitated. Not willing? Every nerve and cell in his body was roaring. He wanted the child she bore for him. But, Leah frowned and lowered his head. The previous messenger of the beast deity was best at reading people's minds. Up till now, a lot of important information had been lost from the inheritance, but with just an incomplete copy, the Snow Fox clan could still control the entire beast world. In this generation, both Cole and Leah were the cream of the crop. It was just that one had become an ambitious person while the other had become a hermit. Coincidentally, both of them had their eyes on the same woman. Leah did not want Gu Mengmeng to see any flaws from his face, so all he could do was to lower his head and avoid talking. Elvis's thoughts were not as complicated as Lee's. He only knew that he had promised Gu Mengmeng not to hide anything from her and he had to keep his word. Chapter 1067. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and did not know whether to laugh or cry. The things that she could not understand no matter how hard she thought about it became clear in an instant. It was not that complicated at first, but she was the one who worried for nothing. So, you guys did not let me get pregnant because you felt sorry for me? Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She laughed at herself for forgetting the pain after the scar healed. She was in so much pain when she gave birth to Huda and his brothers, but now, she only remembered that it was quite painful, but how painful was it? She could not remember at all. Perhaps when she was giving birth to the 4 brothers, she had really shouted that she did not want to give birth anymore, but now, she could not remember it anymore. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and opened her arms to hug him. Elvis pulled her into his arms and rubbed his face against her neck intimately, satisfied with the fullness of having her in his arms. Gu Mengmeng was such an existence to Elvis. She did not need to do anything, but her presence could fill his heart to the brim. Gu Mengmeng pulled Lee's hand and smiled gently. I have the powers of a beast king now. Even if you cut me open and dissect me, I might not die. Giving birth to a child is a piece of cake. Leah felt very helpless. He had struggled for a long time and did not want to say it, but Elvis had said it out loud so easily. So, he was the best candidate to be the first partner. As for himself, he might never be able to be as calm as he was in front of Gu Mengmeng. He was not afraid of Gu Mengmeng knowing anything. As for himself, no matter how hard he tried, some thoughts were stuck in his mouth. Pinching Gu Mengmeng's little hand, Leah chuckled. You won't die, but you will be in pain. Elvis and Leah had the same thoughts. They had both seen Gu Mengmeng giving birth with their own eyes. Even now, Elvis could still taste the blood in his mouth. It was as if a basin of rusty water had been poured into his windpipe. That feeling was unforgettable. Usually, when his Xiao Meng's hand was pricked by a wooden thorn, he would feel as if his heart was being smashed by a stick. And that night, Gu Mengmeng's blood flowed like a river and she was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. That scene had really shocked them. They knew that they did not have the courage to go through it again. If they saw Gu Mengmeng in so much pain again, they would probably go crazy. Gu Mengmeng's gaze reflected the sunlight and landed on Lee's face. She smiled peacefully and said, but, if I don't give birth to a nest of cubs for you, I will feel very regretful. She gave Elvis, Heda and his brothers, and also gave Elvis the title and status of the first partner. But other than a mark on her ear, Leah had nothing else. Leah sighed. If the reason that Gu Mengmeng mentioned was about him, he could use a sentence that he had long prepared: I don't need cubs to brush her off. But she said she would regret it. She also wants a nest of their cubs, right? It wasn't all because of guilt and inferiority, but because she loved him. That was why she wanted a nest of their cubs. Gu Mengmeng, I don't want to see you bleed anymore, and I don't want to see you in pain anymore. Leah looked deeply at Gu Mengmeng and said. Gu Mengmeng patted Li's shoulder and said, It's all right, just don't guard the cave when I'm alive this time. Leah was speechless. Her solution was to keep him out of sight? Gu Mengmeng. Chapter 1068. Previously it was Elvis, this time it was her. She did not even change her lines. Even though he knew that she wanted to act, Leah was still willing to cooperate. If she wanted to hear it, he was willing to pour out his heartfelt words into her ears every day. There is a scar on my heart, where the sky once fell. If you cut open my chest, you will realize that the scar is very special. There are only 5 words: I don't love you anymore. Gu Mengmeng's heart shrank as if it was being scratched by a cat. She knew better than anyone else who said, I don't love you anymore. Pursing her lips and not saying a word, Gu Mengmeng's eyes met Li's long and narrow pupils. She was sucked in by his deep love and could not move an inch. Leah went forward and kissed the tip of her brows lightly, whispering softly, A body of pure white fur established my holy and noble childhood. I was once a child blessed by the gods. I stood at the most dazzling place under the sun and was worshipped by people. I also once fell into hell because of hatred, killed hundreds of demons, stepped on other people's bones to climb up, becoming the most evil existence in this world. However, from the moment I met you, I was empty. He placed Gu Mengmeng's little hand by his lips and kissed it gently, looking up at Gu Mengmeng, continuing, That's right, I said I was empty. I emptied my body and emptied my heart. There is no good or evil, only you. In my name, I swear to the beast deity, from today onwards, only you are my God, my life, my everything. Leah repeated the oath he made back then, still full of deep love. His long and narrow eyes were full of infatuation, gently but firmly entwined around Gu Mengmeng, not leaving a single gap. If you are kind, I will redeem myself and become a Buddha. If you are evil, I will sacrifice myself and become a demon. Li's fingers hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly, kissing her thin lips. The kiss was lingering but not deep, giving off a sense of beauty as if they were filming an idol drama. After a long while, Leah finally pulled away, looking at Gu Mengmeng with misty eyes, saying, I will be wherever you are, regardless of good or evil, regardless of life or death. But you say, I don't love you like this? They were an old couple, right? But Gu Mengmeng still blushed and her heart raced from Li's occasional teasing. That's true. This sentence, don't you love me anymore? In the modern era, this was a golden phrase that could do anything. As long as this line was used, boys could only submit. Whether it was right or wrong, in front of this sentence, if you didn't want to make a mess, you could only admit defeat. Because once it rose to the value of, you don't love me, it would be quite difficult to coax. Or, you actually want to change girlfriends, so it doesn't matter. However, this did not work in the beast world. It's not that it won't work. The reverse will work as well. If a male asks a female, do you not love me anymore? It was much more reasonable in the beast world. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. She had to end her pretense even if she had to die. So he cleared his throat and forced himself to say awkwardly, You used to love me very much. You agreed to everything I said. Now, I'm just saying that I want to give birth to a nest of little foxes, but you're not willing. Clearly, you don't love me anymore, so you think I'm troublesome. Leah chuckled and said, Do you really want a nest of little foxes? Gu Mengmeng nodded her head heavily, showing her determination. Chapter 1069. Snatch a nest? Gu Mengmeng's mind couldn't keep up with Li's pace and she didn't understand what he meant. Leah nodded. Although it may be a little troublesome, it shouldn't be difficult to set up a trap. As long as you kill a female that has just given birth, you can get a nest of fox cubs. The last time I heard from Oakley, he said that there were 3 litters of newborns. Among them, Philly's 3 cubs are the best and Lacey's have the most with 5 cubs. Which nest do you want? Gu Mengmeng stared at Leah for a long time and confirmed that Leah was serious, her face flushed with shock. It's not like I can't give birth myself. Why would I snatch someone else's? Leah replied, I can't bear for you to suffer. Gu Mengmeng hurriedly waved her hands. But you can't kill a mother and snatch someone else's child. Leah shrugged. Why not? Why? Yes, in this beast world, forceful snatching was the right thing to do. So Cole snatched her Qixuan away and she could only snatch it back. Power was justice. If she couldn't win, she couldn't reason with him. Gu Mengmeng still shook her head. Leah, you know that the education I received since young is different from you. I have deeply ingrained values and there are many things I can't do. Leah didn't force her and took a step back. Then don't snatch them away. Let them raise them themselves. When you want to play, I will bring them over for you to play with. You can just return them when you are done playing with them. Gu Mengmeng replied, don't you feel envious looking at other people's little foxes? Li's long and narrow eyes brightened. Layers of smiles and gentleness rippled out, slowly pouring into Gu Mengmeng's bright eyes. When you are by my side, I have never envious of anyone. Gu Mengmeng's heart fluttered under Li's affectionate gaze. She blushed slightly and lowered her head in silence. Cole, who had been waiting at the stray beast camp for a long time but Gu Mengmeng and the rest still hadn't appeared. He came over and heard Li's confession. He snorted in disdain. If you care about everything with your mouth, what about a mute? With a pop, the romantic dividend bubble was burst by Wabi-Eye. Gu Mengmeng sighed and shook her head in exasperation. You're an old bachelor, what do you know? I am only over 800 years old this year. You are the 10,000-year-old bachelor. Wabi-Eye and Gu Mengmeng would feel uncomfortable if they did not exchange a few words. Gu Mengmeng wrapped one arm around Elvis's neck and the other around Leah. She said, I have a partner, I can't afford to be a bachelor. Wabi-Eye gritted his teeth. Great, Gu Mengmeng found another point to mock him. Damn it, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so talkative. What a waste of time. Wabi-Eye pretended not to hear Gu Mengmeng's provocation. He swung his tail impatiently. Are you leaving or not? What? Are you going to spend the night here? Look, the isolation belt is less than 10 steps behind you. Even a snail can walk faster than you. Before Gu Mengmeng could say anything, Elvis spoke up. I met with some trouble just now, so I was delayed for a while. Wabi-Eye immediately became alert. He looked around. Did Cole find trouble with you just now? Chapter 1070. Then. Wabi-Eye wanted to ask more, but was interrupted by Gu Mengmeng. Let's hurry, I want to return to Saint Nazaire as soon as possible. Gu Mengmeng thought to herself, after such a big fuss, Victor's matter had finally been settled. She better not let that idiot Wabi-Eye bring it up again. How could Elvis and Leah not understand her? But that Victor wasn't worth pursuing too much. It was enough for them to make their stance clear. It was not worth it to harp on and make things difficult for Gu Mengmeng. Moreover, if that stupid tiger hadn't used his age to agitate Elvis and Leah, they wouldn't have cared about him at all. After a day's journey, they found a cave to rest in at night. Elvis and the rest had dug this cave the last time they returned to Saint Nazaire from the stray beast camp. At that time, they had thought that Natalie and Peter were here, and given Gu Mengmeng's character, they would definitely come here often. So they had dug this cave in advance, so that Gu Mengmeng could rest on her way back and forth. The cave was well hidden, and with Gu Mengmeng's beast king scent lingering around, ordinary beasts wouldn't dare to approach, not to mention wild beasts. After dinner, it started to drizzle. Such weather was more comfortable for Wabi-Ai outdoors than indoors, so he swam out. Gu Mengmeng didn't bother about him. Leah started a fire in the cave to keep the inside of the cave dry so that Gu Mengmeng could have a comfortable sleep. Ever since Gu Mengmeng had a nosebleed in solder, Leah hadn't started a fire in the cave for a long time. When she slept, Elvis and Leah would hug each other to keep Gu Mengmeng warm. There was a fire in the cave, and the warmth made Gu Mengmeng sleepy. She closed her eyes in Elvis's arms and fell into a deep sleep. Looking at her defenseless sleeping face, Elvis narrowed his eyes. That slightly opened mouth was like an invitation, making Elvis a little dazed. Before his brain could make a decision, his lips were already pressed against that wet spot. In her half-dream, she sensed a familiar scent. Gu Mengmeng didn't resist, but instinctively wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck. This action was undoubtedly a form of encouragement, making Elvis, who only wanted to steal a kiss, even more irresistible. Flipping over, he pressed one hand against the side of her ear and the other around the back of her head, using his forearm as a pillow for her. He half-knelt in between her legs to support his body's strength, sticking close to her but not crushing her. This kiss gradually developed from light and sweet to lingering. As she was too familiar with Elvis, Gu Mengmeng instinctively responded to this kiss but did not open her eyes, as if it was an unconscious action in her sleep. When her tongue responded to his teasing, he seemed to have received some kind of permission and became even more unbridled. Gu Mengmeng, whose pajamas were already heavy from the warmth of the campfire, felt even more dizzy from Elvis's kiss. Her brain could not react but her body gave the most direct response. The fox's seductive fragrance filled the entire room. The fragrance was strong and alluring. "Xiao Meng, you're giving your permission, right?" Elvis's deep and hoarse voice rang beside Gu Mengmeng's ear, teasing the string in her heart. Gu Mengmeng moaned, because of the ticklish feeling. She twisted her body twice, as if expressing her dissatisfaction at Elvis restricting her movements. Chapter 1071. Elvis had not started eating for a long time and so was Leah. "But, I will go out and guard for you." Leah stood up with much difficulty, fighting with his rationality and desire. Elvis also knew the reason why Leah gave up on joining when he was in the throes of passion. He was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would pester him to mention the little fox again, so he avoided her alone. After all, if Gu Mengmeng really wanted to pester him, how could he and Leah resist her? But you can't hide from her forever. Leah paused his steps with much difficulty. He did not turn back, afraid that he would pounce on her, so he said, "Bear with it first. We will talk about it after she forgets about it." Elvis looked at Lee's back view and remained silent for a moment, before saying, "Next time, I will help you guard." "Yeah." Leah still walked out in the end, even though every step was difficult and he was in a pathetic state. But it was better than enduring the fire burning his body, it was better than watching her suffer so much just to give birth to a nest of spoiled cubs. Sitting at the entrance of the cave, Leah looked up at the sky and smiled bitterly. "I told you before, it's enough for us to have one fox in our family, but you just won't listen, so naughty." In the cave, the atmosphere became even more intense after Leah left. Elvis caressed Gu Mengmeng's hair lightly and called out gently, "Xiao Meng, open your eyes and look at me, yeah?" "Yeah." Gu Mengmeng was already awake, but her eyelids were so dry that she was unwilling to open them. Women were just so strange. She would not have any thoughts before experiencing it, but after experiencing it, her body would start to have needs. Moreover, the more wonderful the experience, the better her body would be developed, and the more sensitive and eager she would be towards certain things. Elvis's comfort had long ignited Gu Mengmeng's body. It would be a miracle if she could still sleep peacefully. Wrapping her hands around Elvis's neck, Gu Mengmeng turned around and laid on his chest. She rubbed against his neck in a coquettish manner, her little hands caressing his collarbone and the tip of her tongue lightly licking his Adam's apple. Elvis's throat tightened and he instinctively swallowed his saliva, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. This small response made Gu Mengmeng feel like a child who had stolen a fruit and was especially interested in this moving candy. Her half-asleep body was even softer than usual. She laid on Elvis's body as though she had no bones and rested her head on his shoulder. Her entire body was emitting a seductive fragrance and her body temperature was slightly hot, making Elvis's internal organs feel comfortable. The little person who was causing trouble did not open her eyes. Her small mouth wandered between his neck and chin as if she was tasting a delicacy. She nibbled and kissed, making his chin full of saliva. However, he was reluctant to pull the little person away from his body. The itch in his heart was unbearable, but he damn enjoyed the torment. Gu Mengmeng was born to torture him. Hubby, Gu Mengmeng called out softly. Elvis's bones completely melted when he heard her. He breathed heavily beside Gu Mengmeng's ear and gently bit her earlobe, asking softly, What do you want me to do? Gu Mengmeng bit Elvis's chin and did not use much strength. Then, she said in a muffled voice, Kiss, hug and raise me up high. Elvis chuckled and the word, good, was drowned between their lips and teeth. The ground was full of flowers, the ambiguous flowers blossomed. Out of topic. Hurry, there's no time. Hurry up and board the train. Look at the car plate, 4927792773. After boarding the train, look for the administrator to check the tickets. Babes with more than 800 fans can enter the VIP cabin and enjoy the special treatment of overflowing meat fragrance. Note, this train is not heading to the kindergarten. Please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. This train is not heading to the kindergarten. Please do not sneak onto the train if you want to go to the kindergarten. Chapter 1072. She had been tortured by Elvis too much. If she had given up and fainted as usual, she would have recovered after a day's rest. But because she had promised him, Gu Mengmeng forced herself to stay conscious and fight for half a night. She had truly experienced the difference in their abilities at every juncture. In a daze, she heard Elvis ask her if she wanted to set off. She said something in a daze, and then she felt her body start to move unsteadily. Yeah, it should be Elvis carrying her towards Saint Nazaire. Gu Mengmeng slept more peacefully this way. She slept for more than 2 days straight. When she woke up, she was in Frankston. Gu Mengmeng could recognize this place mainly because Hanston and Joshua were standing right in front of her. Yeah, 3rd-level rhinoceros and 1st-level apes. The tribe had taken in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. They had once requested to mate with her and Sauter, but were threatened and mocked by Elvis and Leah. After that, they had never seen each other again. Gu Mengmeng remembered Leah telling her that Frankston and Saint Nazaire shared a border. They had never met before because they did not dare to appear in front of Elvis. This time, they were quite daring. Were they not afraid that Elvis and Leah would be unhappy and really destroy Frankston? Leah was preparing lunch for Gu Mengmeng. After Victor's lesson, Gu Mengmeng did not dare to show any attention to other males. She did not even dare to look around and just stared at Elvis's Adam's apple. She did not spare a single glance at Hanston and Joshua who were standing in front of her. Damn it, Elvis's jealousy was not something to joke about. She had already slept for 2 days and still felt pain all over as if she had been hit by a truck. And this was with the protection of the Beast King's abilities. If not, Gu Mengmeng really felt that she had been too rash in mating. She should have tried marriage in advance. Otherwise, it would be too late for regrets when she died in bed one day. Elvis was very satisfied with Gu Mengmeng's reaction. How good would it be if she could stay in his arms obediently like a kitten and not give anyone a chance? After knowing that the great messenger was passing by Frankston, the two of us specially came to escort you to ensure that you are safe in Frankston. Hanston said respectfully. No need. Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and said, Elvis and Leah are enough to take care of me, I don't need anyone else. Wabi-I rolled his eyes, which meant, do you think I'm not human? Gu Mengmeng glared at Wabi-I from the side of Elvis's neck, meaning to say, why are you pretending to be a human when you're just a pile of shit? Wabi didn't want to embarrass Gu Meng Meng in front of outsiders, so he tolerated it and didn't make a sound. He just slowly closed his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. Hanston understood the meaning behind her words and thought that she was still upset about the time he had proposed to her in Sauter, so he said, "Great messenger, don't misunderstand. Hanston knows that I am not worthy of you and I have already put away those thoughts that I shouldn't have." This time, he was really here to escort the Lord Emissary. After all, this is Frankston's territory. If the Great Messenger encounters anything unpleasant here, we won't be able to bear the consequences. Chapter 1073. Joshua could not withstand the silent stare of a fifth-level orc like Elvis. His heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out of his chest. But from the corner of his eyes, he saw Gu Meng Meng, who was nestled in Elvis's arms and had not looked at him at all. He did not have the right to challenge, but he could not give up. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Elvis in the eye, but said with a trembling voice, "I like the mighty messenger, this will not change. But I also know that I do not have the right to pursue her, so I will not do anything unnecessary to make myself look pathetic in front of the mighty messenger." "Ha!" Elvis chuckled and waved his hands, saying, "What makes you think that I will allow an idiot who covets my female to stand out in front of Xiao Meng? I will give you two choices, scram now, or..." Before Elvis could finish his sentence, he shook his body and instantly released his fifth-level beast pressure, then immediately retracted it. It was as if Joshua was inflated into a human-shaped balloon at the opening of a shopping mall in a second, then immediately deflated back to his original size. His knees gave way and he knelt on the ground, reverting to his original form, but he did not even have the strength to escape. Hugging his head with both hands, Joshua buried his face tightly in his knees, trembling all over. Hanston was here to express goodwill and not to cause trouble. Seeing how Elvis was acting, if they did not leave now, he might just kill the two of them right here, so he did not dare to delay any further. He only helped Joshua up and said, "Since that's the case, we'll head back first. After all, we are neighbors and we still have to rely on St. Nazir's water source to survive the dry season." Elvis did not say a word, just looking at Hanston and Joshua with disdain like a king, expressionless and dignified. After Hanston left, Leah swayed his tail and placed one arm on Elvis's shoulder, while the other reached into his arms to poke Gu Meng Meng, who was curled up like an ostrich. He laughed. He did not want to show his embarrassment in front of Gu Meng Meng. Did he think that we would allow him to maintain a good image in front of Gu Meng Meng? Seeing that everyone had left, Gu Meng Meng heaved a sigh of relief. She leaned on Elvis's shoulder and said, "He was just a first-level orc. Weren't you a little too ruthless?" "I was scared out of my wits." Elvis chuckled. "If it was in the past, I would have just bitten him to death. I was afraid you wouldn't like it, so I held back." Gu Meng Meng did not say anything else. After all, she had heard about what kind of person Elvis was in the past. He had already changed a lot because of her habits and personality. He had always been accommodating her, hadn't he? Leah prepared lunch and Gu Meng Meng ate it casually before continuing their journey. It only took half a day to travel from Frankston to St. Nazir. That night, Gu Meng Meng returned to St. Nazir. And before she entered the territory, a row of familiar people were already standing there waiting for Gu Meng Meng. Barit and Oriton, the two great guards, stood right in the middle. It was rare that Ian did not climb up the tree and just stood there looking at Gu Meng Meng with a faint smile. Fei Rui, who was half a head shorter, stood beside him. His pair of clear eyes reflected the stars in the sky, so bright that one could not shift their gaze away from him. Chapter 1074. Oriton was much more at ease, or perhaps it should be said that his naturally paralyzed face was too perfect. Even if he had any emotions, he would hide 95% of them, so no one could tell whether he was happy or sad. He just cleared his throat and asked, "Have you guys eaten dinner?" Gu Meng Meng shook her head and said, "I knew you were waiting, so I came back to eat with you." Oriton was obviously taken aback, then he frowned slightly and said, "I have already prepared the prey for you. Today am not eating, I will only help you cut the meat, start the fire and wash the cutlery. Oriton was not eating. Not only was he not eating, he was also watching from the side. Was he torturing himself? Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was not saying anything, Oriton clenched his fists and said, I am not eating tomorrow either. Gu Mengmeng was so stunned, a foodie actually changed his nature. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was still not saying anything, Oriton frowned and clenched his fists tightly, as if he was enduring an extreme pain, and shouted, I am not eating the day after tomorrow either. 3 days is the limit, I cannot tolerate any longer. If you are still not appeased, just let your partner fight with me. Gu Mengmeng, she had clearly said from the start that she deliberately did not eat dinner today, so that she could eat with him. Did she look like she was very angry? How cruel was it to deprive a foodie of the right to eat? Why would such a kind and gentle person like Gu Mengmeng do such a heavy thing? Wasn't that right? Gu Mengmeng covered her mouth and chuckled, saying, Are you apologizing to me for leaving Sauter without saying goodbye? Oriton didn't say anything. He looked away guiltily, then nodded his head slightly. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head to look at Barit and said, What about you? How do you intend to express your gratitude? Barit's lips pressed into a straight line. He lowered his head and said, I betrayed you, I should go to the platform of the deity's punishment. Gu Mengmeng did not express her opinion, she just said to Elvis, I am hungry, let's go home first, we will talk after eating. Elvis did not care about the 4 of them at all, he just walked past them and returned to the entrance of the cave, putting Gu Mengmeng down. This was their habit, every time they returned home, they would definitely put Gu Mengmeng down at the entrance, then Gu Mengmeng would hold their hands and return to the cave. It had been a long time since anyone had lived in the cave, so there was a thick layer of dust. Elvis took out a beast skin and laid a thick layer on the ground. He then placed Gu Mengmeng on the cushion and kissed her forehead before returning to the cave to tidy up. Leah started a fire in front of Gu Mengmeng and set up a stone pot. Without standing on ceremony, he took the meat Oriton had prepared, changed the knife, added some seasonings and started cooking. From the moment the fire was lit, Oriton's eyes never left the wok. Barit walked to Gu Mengmeng's side and sat beside her. He did not dare to look at her and just sat there quietly. After a long silence, he finally opened his mouth and said, This time, I won't be able to survive. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Barit, asking, This is your way of compensating me? Barit nodded and said, Other than this life, I have nothing else. So, I can only offer this life to the beast deity to wash away my sins. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, You did something wrong to me, shouldn't you be apologizing to me? Why did you give it to my father? Barit looked at her, he did not understand what Gu Mengmeng meant. Gu Mengmeng asked, You don't want this life anymore, right? Chapter 1075. Gu Mengmeng smiled and took a deep breath, saying, Since you don't want it, give it to me. From today onwards, your life belongs to me and you have to listen to me for the rest of your life. You have to give up your own sense of right and wrong and only obey me. This is called compensation. If you die so easily, I won't get anything. How is that considered as an apology? Barit was stunned by Gu Mengmeng's reasoning. He was someone who had betrayed her. She was still willing to trust him again. She was still willing to give him another chance to stay by her side. He had thought that she would never forgive him. He had thought that she would never want to see him again. So he said he would go up the platform of the deity's punishment and never come down again. That way, she would be happier and appease some of her anger. But she said, he belonged to her now. Why, you're not willing? Gu Mengmeng raised her brows and said, All right, I won't force you if you're not willing, then help me do 10 things instead, I'm willing. Barit blurted out. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and nodded in agreement, saying, all right. Then it's settled, but I haven't thought of the 10 things yet, you can owe me first. Barit shook his head and blushed. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with his bright eyes and said, Not this. I mean, I'm willing to give my life to you and listen to you for the rest of my life. I don't have my own sense of right and wrong and only obey you. I'm willing. Huh. Actually, Gu Mengmeng had purposely said that to scare him. After all, they were friends. He knew that Oakley was plotting against her, but he did not even warn her before leaving without bidding farewell. Gu Mengmeng was quite resentful towards him for this. After all, if he had revealed a few words to let Gu Mengmeng know about Oakley earlier, maybe things could have changed. Oakley and Bloom wouldn't have to die. But Barit agreed just like that, and Gu Mengmeng was caught unprepared. Laughing dryly, Gu Mengmeng patted Barit's shoulder and said, "Actually, you just didn't report what you knew. It's not a crime worthy of death, and you don't need to throw away your entire life." Barit's expression stiffened. He retracted his gaze and lowered his head to look at his own shadow. He slowly asked, "You actually don't want to see me anymore, right? It's okay, don't force yourself. I don't deserve to be forgiven." Gu Mengmeng had transmigrated here for a year, but she was still not used to the relationships between men and women here. One was absolutely supreme, while the other was even lower than a speck of dust. As long as he made a female unhappy, he would deserve to die. Gu Mengmeng looked at Barit's expression. If she did not take his life and ravage it ruthlessly, he would admit that Gu Mengmeng had not forgiven him. Shaking her head helplessly, Gu Mengmeng said, "All right, I'll take care of your life first. When you meet a female you like Colin and want to mate with her, I'll return it to you." In other words, if he thought it through, he could be free at any time. After all, Gu Mengmeng said, when you want to mate with someone, and not after you mate. In other words, as long as Barit said, "I have someone I like, I want to mate," Gu Mengmeng would return him his freedom. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.